Welcome to another episode of Classic Beauty with Besame Cosmetics. I'm Gabriela Hernandez, and today we have a very special guest with us in the studio. David Kibbe has revolutionized the world of personal fashion in the 1980s with the celebrated guide to bodies, clothing, and inner harmony, Metamorphosis. 4 decades later, his ideas are more popular than ever. The explosive viral reach of Kibbe's method on social media in recent years highlights a new demand for an at-home style guide, and so Kibbe has answered the call again with the new style Bible, his new book, David Kibbe's Power Style, a guided journey to help you discover your authentic style. So let's meet David and talk more about his new book. All right. Well, thank you for joining me today, David. I am so happy to talk to you about your new book, and I have a ton of questions. I have read it ahead of time, and one of my questions is your first book came out in 1987, right? The
Correct.
David Kibbe's Metamorphosis.
Yes, it did.
So why do you think what has changed in all these years that you think you want to do a new version, or
hmm
what is different in this new version?
Well, everything basically. I mean, we didn't even have technology. In 1987, I could not be here right now talking with you. I'd have to fly out to Los Angeles, which I would have minded to do, by the way, because I'm sure the weather is better there than here. But we couldn't be talking this way. Everything has changed. Technology, the digital revolution was like the industrial revolution in that it changed everything. Like we're thinking about clothes, and I'm a historian in terms of style, so you have to bear with me a little
Mhm.
bit. All of these um, things that happen in society reverberate down to the things that we call style or fashion or beauty. When the Industrial Revolution changed the way people were able to buy clothes, because up until that point, women had their clothes all made by hand. The richest women went to Paris,
Yes.
the next richest women had dressmakers copy those, and then women at home made their own clothes. So when the Industrial Revolution happened, factories became possible, and ultimately stores began to present ready-made clothes so people could buy them. Well, that changed everything. Well, the digital revolution was like that because technology created changes everywhere. Not only, of course, the internet and social media and all that we think about, but in terms of clothes and things, technology created fabrics that didn't exist before. So in the 80s, we didn't have stretch in fabric. It did not exist. It was introduced in the 80s, and then it became a little bit prevalent in the 90s. But then, really, as we get into today, stretch, if it isn't in the fabric, it's influenced how the fabric is made. It's all lighter weight. It drapes around the body in a totally different way. So, very specifically, when we're talking about style, we're talking really about how you communicate visually who you are, your story, what your purpose in life is, how you get your light out
Mhm.
to the world to connect with others. All right. Well, in style terms, it's visual. So we talk about, I like to
Mhm.
describe people as a painting and a sculpture. So your painting has to do with the colors that you've been given to your coloring and the colors that you can put out into the world. The sculpture of you, your body, has to tell you about how things hang and drape off the body. So what we see visually when someone walks in the room is what we would call a silhouette. A silhouette is the
Mhm.
outline that we look at when you walk into the room. So in my
Mhm.
philosophy, we're all who we're supposed to be. We come here with a unique purpose, and therefore part of who we are is what we look like. So I'm not a believer in flaws. I don't believe in mistakes. I believe we look the way we do because it's part of who we are. And I see beauty as coming from individuality rather than starting with a premise of what beauty is supposed to be and then try to make you into a facsimile of that. I say, no, 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 no. You're the example. You are the quintessential example of your type of beauty. And beauty is defined by being who you are to the fullest. So, with that in mind, when we get to the body, we want to work in harmony with what's there, not try to make it something that it's not. See, traditional techniques
Right.
were always about starting with an ideal outside the body and then trying to turn you into really an imitation of that. But I say, no, that's like saying you're supposed to be somebody you're not. So and you'll never ever
Right.
really feel like yourself if you're doing that because it's a facade. So what we see in terms of the silhouette is how do we work in harmony with the body that you have, understanding that it's perfect in all the proportions if you can view it that way. So the silhouette is the thing that changes, back to your question. And that's what technology has changed. In the old days, silhouette was structured. So it existed outside the body. It came from Paris,
Mhm.
usually, and then you were given all these rules to sort of shoehorn you into that. Like if you think of the 40s and the 50s, it's a good way of explaining it.
Yeah.
The 40s had the very
Hmm.
strong shoulders and the slim silhouette.
Right.
That's because of the war, so helping people feel more empowered, but also rations meant fabric was not available, so it's very slim.
Right.
All right, so like in the
Yes.
late 40s after the war, Christian Dior captured the mood of the world that we wanted to sort of breathe this sigh of relief after everything was done. Rations started to be lifted. So he created that new look, which was all about luxury and yards of fabric. And you have the opposite silhouette, which is slim on top, artificially cinched in the waist with this full skirt that even often had padded hips. So all of those things are constructed outside the body. All right, well, fast forward to the late 80s when stretch is beginning to be introduced into fabric. It drapes around the body
Hmm.
in a different way. So today, silhouette is not like that at all. We don't have those silhouettes that are structured outside the body. Today's silhouette is a combination of your body and the clothes. So you have to learn how to work in harmony with what's there. So that is a radical difference. And what you see is the availability of all these different styles today. There is no one silhouette of our time. Like you can see a silhouette through history for usually from the decade or sometimes longer than that.
Hmm.
But today, there's so many different things that are available for all bodies, for all types, for all ages. And that's what's wonderful about today if you have some
Hmm.
education. So it is really about everything is much more available and much more open and not as structured and not as rigid, which I think goes very well with this idea that we're trying to be a more open, inclusive society.
Right. And that's why you say the body type is a myth.
Yeah, because a body type means it starts outside yourself and you're supposed to identify yourself as a type. See, type
Right.
is a shorthand for stereotype, and that's the opposite of my approach. My approaches start with
Hmm.
you as an individual. So we give you names to help you focus. You have to have technique. You can't just say, "Oh, I'm beautiful," and go out into the world. No, it's like makeup. You have to learn technique. But what we start
Right.
with is perfection. So what we're doing is enhancing perfection. So when you start with the idea of a body type, you're starting with preconceived ideas that you have to fit yourself into. It's really the opposite of that. And my work has been misconstrued a lot because we go back to the old Hollywood archetypes for inspiration. But I'm not trying to make people be something that they shouldn't be. I'm trying to go back to the artistry of those days, just like you with your cosmetics. And I must tell you something,
Right.
if I may. Your packaging is so beautiful. I just when I
Oh,
started
thank you.
looking at it, it's just so gorgeous. And those compacts that they reminded me of the 20s when the Art Deco era influenced those, and you had like Helena Rubinstein and Elizabeth Arden
Yes.
then doing those compacts that they did because the girls would go out
Yes.
dancing all night, but they made them so beautiful. Their works of art. You're just exactly the same. I mean, you're like today's version of those women. I just think it's so exciting. And may say
Well,
one of,
thank you.
and the other thing, if I just may, when I was
Yes.
reading about your history and the story about connecting to your grandmother through your cosmetics, that just moved me to the bottom of my soul because that is everything that I believe that beauty, it, it bridges the gap between ages, eras, politics, religion, nationalities. It is a universal language. It really is our liaison to the heavens. So I identify so much with that, and that is really the basis of my work is called love-based beauty, which if you start with that and you really do want to connect and communicate from that point, the rest is a piece of cake.
Right, right. And so, do you think like anybody can have style?
Oh,
Like any person
absolutely.
can have
Oh,
style?
oh heavens, yes, because this is really about having elevated style. Because if you really do
Mm-hmm.
believe that style is how you tell your story to the world, first of all, you have to believe that you came here for a purpose, which I totally believe in. Otherwise, why would anybody come here? There's a lot of crazy stuff that goes on our planet. So I believe we
Right.
come here with a purpose to share our love, to share our light. So style is
Mm-hmm.
really how you tell your story to the world, but it has to be connected to other people or you don't have a story. So everybody is connected in everybody's story. So yes, you just have to learn technique, but that's why I created a system to give people a way of working with colors and silhouettes and what we call clothing styles and to put them together
Mm-hmm.
in a digital way with a system that everybody could work. So if you're willing to learn it, you can absolutely have that. Some people will feel more comfortable doing it. Some people may like to do it more than others. Some people may have
Mm-hmm.
more talent, but talent doesn't do you any good if you don't have technique. I mean, that's like saying, a lot of young girls love makeup, but what they do is like try to put as many colors on their face as possible. They don't have any
Yeah.
technique. So that if they are willing to burnish that, to polish that, then they can become like you. But they're not born that way. Style is an acquired skill. It absolutely is. But you absolutely can have it if you start with self-acceptance. That's the most important thing.
Do you think that you have to change or style changes as you get
Oh,
older?
absolutely.
Are there clothes you shouldn't wear as you get older?
Sure, because, well, first of all, time changes. So we want to be connected to the time that we live in. We don't want to pretend that we're living in some other age. But yeah,
Mm-hmm.
absolutely. See, I believe that style is not the same thing as trend. Okay, trend is something that
Mm-hmm.
is designed for teenagers, and so they're going to do it because it is trend means everybody is doing it. That's why they call it trend. It's trending. Style is individual.
Mm-hmm.
It's all about you as a purpose, you as a person. Like, what is your purpose? What are
Right.
your dreams? Everyone has their own individual dreams. You need to connect with that because that will connect you to your passion, and your passion helps you understand really why you're here and gives you the motivation to really go beyond what people tell you you must do. So style is always about
Mm-hmm.
aspiration and inspiration. But absolutely it must change because as people we evolve. We're not the same when we're 30 as we are when we're 15. We're not the same as we're 50. But I also believe that, society tells us too much that we aggrandize the youth and sort of are falling apart as we get older. I don't believe that's true at
Mm-hmm.
all. I like to look at nature. And in nature, I always look at like flowers. If I look at a rose, a bud is a
Mm-hmm.
beautiful, fresh thing, and it's absolutely lovely. But the true beauty of a rose is when it's in full bloom. So if we really look that
Mm-hmm.
nature knows what it's doing, and we are, as human beings, creatures of nature, we get better as we get older. If you really believe
Mm-hmm.
that, if you're coming from love and not from fear, that tells you, you're going to fall apart as you get older. No, what if you look at it and say, no, I'm more of myself. I mean, I certainly, at this time in my life, am not really wanting to go back to my 20s. And, that was a great time and I loved that. And I did things that I
Mm-hmm.
loved doing at the time that I would never do now because I've learned. And so style should encompass
Mm-hmm.
all of that. If style is how you tell your story to the world, well, let's hope your story gets richer and fuller as time goes on. So style should reflect that. So absolutely, you should. But instead of thinking of it as changing, I think of it as evolving. But that's what I think of age
Mm-hmm.
as. I think the way we define age is a fear-based, limited way. If we could replace the definition as evolution, that we evolve,
Mm-hmm.
and evolution is everything, because that's the whole purpose of what history teaches us, that we evolve as human beings and as souls. That's what we want to do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree with you. I think on my own personal journey, I think I started to get comfortable with the way that I looked and the way that I did my makeup and what clothes I wore as I got older,
Yes.
not really when I was young, because when I was younger, it was more experimental. I was trying different things, but
Yes.
it wasn't really, exactly quite right,
Yes. Absolutely.
because
Hmm.
you're kind of fighting your own,
Yeah.
body, your
Yeah.
own things. Like you have curly hair, you want it straight. You
Exactly.
have
Right.
straight hair, you want it curly.
Right.
Like that kind of thing.
Right.
Because it's in, but it doesn't mean it suits you. It
That's
fits
right.
you,
That's right.
and
Yeah.
so so at a certain point you go, I'm going to go with my body and with, the style of hair that I have and the color
And
of hair
that's
that I have.
wonderful. And everybody doesn't do that, but that's how you became you, and that's why you are who you are today, and why you have the success that you have, and why you look the way you do. Unfortunately, society doesn't give us that message. We hear too much
Right,
about what's wrong with us,
right,
like correct your flaws,
right,
or whether it comes from
right.
society or sometimes it's our family.
Yeah,
Like mothers, as well-meaning as they are, do not always inspire the confidence of the beauty of the daughter, but it
yeah.
really is about you have to change. You have to, but it's natural to do that. If we were left to our own devices, we wouldn't think that we are less than who we are. I always like us to remember that we are creatures of nature, and all nature is
Hmm.
created to exist in the legitimacy of who they are. Like a German Shepherd doesn't spend any time wishing it was a Siamese cat, you know? And you know what
Exactly
I'm
right.
saying? And
That's exactly right.
a rose doesn't
Yes.
spend its life, being envious of a lily. It just blossoms in its beauty. And I think, we
Right.
come into the world as babies that are uninfluenced by all of this. We're just like little bundles of love. It's what we learn along
Right.
the way. And this is why we need to change our exist from a place of love instead of a place of
Hmm.
fear. And it's one or the other. So that's why love-based beauty is important, because it reminds you to go back to the core of who you are. And we all have that.
Yes.
And when we forget that,
Yes.
we go to our dreams, because our dreams tell us what our soul is longing to express. And we all have our dreams, and they're all individual to the person. And your dreams lead you to the authenticity of who you are. Like I would say, my life has been an example of that. I ended up where I am today because I've listened to my dreams. You ended up who you are today because you listened to those beautiful things that you got from your grandmother and that you learned to listen to. And it takes time. And everybody is on their own
Hmm.
path, and it can take as long as it needs to, but it should evolve. It's like life is a
Yes.
process of evolution.
Yeah, it definitely is a process, and I see it with my clients that a lot of people are so insecure even about trying on a color,
Yeah, yeah.
that they've never tried
Oh,
before.
absolutely.
That the fear. I mean, the fear is just unreal.
Yeah.
Of something that you can just wipe off with the tissue.
Exactly. I
You
know it.
know.
It's pretty amazing. It really is. But that just shows you, in a way, it's sort of a damage to the soul that's been done.
Hmm.
There's a
Hmm.
quote in my book that I absolutely love
Yeah.
to tell everyone, which is, "Don't be frightened. Change is such a beautiful thing," said the butterfly. Because we're
Hmm.
all like, our life is a process of transformation, in my opinion. And we come in, with the potential and the talent and the love to be whatever our dreams lead us to. It's just that sometimes, we've learned to put a lid on our dreams. That doesn't work. It really doesn't. I think, the most important thing I can do is to try to help people fall in love with themselves. If you can really do that, if you start with self love,
Hmm.
start with finding things about yourself that you genuinely love, then it leads to self
Hmm.
acceptance. And if you start there, then the rest is just technique. But if you don't have that, you're really trying to cover over something that you feel is not adequate. And you're so right. I mean, when you stand back and look at it, the silliest thing in the world is to be frightened of makeup, because you can wash your face.
Yes.
It isn't
You
like
can wash it off.
plastic
Yeah, but
surgery
no,
or
I've had
something.
people jump.
I
Yeah, I've
know.
had people
Yes.
jump out of the way because
Yes.
they're like, no.
Yeah,
You
that's
know?
right. Well, that's because they have a fear-based image in their head of what they're supposed to be and what they're
Yeah,
not supposed to be. And so you have to go back.
exactly.
I think you have to go back to the
Yeah.
beginning with everyone and start with
Mm-hmm.
how do you love yourself? How do you learn to appreciate the
Yes.
unique, one of a kind beauty that you are? Because there is nobody else on this planet like you. Never was, never will be. Even if you come back in another life, you won't be the same. So let's really see what is special about you. That's really it. And I go back to beauty comes from individuality. If you really believe that,
Exactly.
it changes
Yeah, no,
everything
it
for you.
does. It does, and I see it. No, no, I see that in my clients as well. I mean, they're all individual. Color, it's bright and it's beautiful on, and it helps you feel more confident. It
Oh, right.
uplifts
I
your
mean,
mood
everybody looks
quite a
better.
bit
Everybody looks
with
better.
some color on.
That's
Yeah,
right.
yeah, with color.
Absolutely. It's just, you need to
Yeah,
find the right range that works for you for all the different reasons that it does. But
ex-
absolutely. Oh,
exactly.
oh
Yeah.
heavens, yes.
Yeah. So when I was reading your book and I went through all the archetypes,
Uh-huh.
the dramatics and the
Mm-hmm.
romantics and the classics and the
Right.
naturals and the gamins,
Mm-hmm.
and the can you for the people listening because there is a lot of misinformation going on around about your techniques in
Mm-hmm.
your previous book. So can you do a quick like do's and don'ts for these types,
Oh,
so that people have an idea,
sure.
just a
Well,
just a just an idea of
first
what.
of all, remember that it's not a stereotype and it's not a type. I like to call
Right,
it, I call it
right,
your image identity because it is your
okay,
the image that you put out that expresses your
okay,
identity. So we use
okay,
the image identities, which there's 10 of them, which come based from sort of mythological archetypes because they resonate to people, but they're not types that you fit. They're not categories that you fit yourself into. So you have to start at the beginning of the
right,
process, which is to understand if your
right,
body is a sculpture, then you have to understand sort of the difference between. Okay, clothes hang off the shoulders and they drape around the curves of the body. Now, all women have a
right,
baseline of curves, that's estrogen. But the way the proportions are built, some people have more of what we would call a vertical or angular line, and some people have more of a dominant curvy line. So that's the first thing you figure
hmm,
out. So you're understanding your personal line, which teaches you how to create a complementary silhouette. Then I use the yin yang
hmm,
scale to translate it onto to help people get away from judgment because a
right,
lot of women, it's exactly what you said with the makeup. Women have been told, oh, they don't want to be too powerful, or they don't want to be, or they won't want to be too sexy, or they don't want to be this or
right,
that. So yin and yang helps you
right,
understand there's no judgment. Whatever you are is the thing it's supposed to be. So the most angular and narrow version is called the dramatic, which is someone like a Katharine Hepburn is the great archetype of that. So it's a very, very tailored kind of idea. So when we're talking about looking at the person, that's what you're talking about in the silhouette. How does the eye
hmm,
travel looking at the person? All right, well, the dramatic person, the eye has to travel straight down in a vertical line. Now, that doesn't mean it can't be soft, but if there's draping or even like sort of, if you want to call them flounce, it doesn't flounce out, it drapes down. Like in the 1930s, the gowns were cut on the bias, so they hang down. That's very different from like
hmm,
Victorian things or, French Rococo, where everything sort of goes out and poofs around. So the dramatic, which is like the Katharine Hepburn, it's like emphasizing the angles of the person. So you want to have a vertical silhouette. So the eye should travel down vertically. All right, the romantic is the opposite of that. So the romantic is the very curvy type, like think Marilyn Monroe or Elizabeth Taylor. So you want the fabric to drape around the curves. So when the eye looks at you, it travels around the curves. Now it can be fitted, it can be flowing, it can be anything, and it can be like you could have a suit for either one of those types. But the suit for the dramatic, like the Katharine Hepburn, would have sharper shoulders and it would be more tailored. The suit for like the Marilyn Monroe or Elizabeth Taylor would be very much draped in at the waist, maybe with a peplum, and it would have like maybe a skirt that had a slit up the side, so that when you look at it, you're
hmm,
traveling around the
yes,
curves. All right, the classic, which is in between the two, is the closest thing to symmetry that there is. Now, nobody is really symmetrical, so it isn't really that extreme, but it means that if there's simplicity. So you can have a classic like that leans more to the angular side or leans more to the curvy side, but it's clean, simple lines. That's like Catherine Deneuve or Grace Kelly. It's that timeless, understated elegance. Now, you have on the more angular side, but not sharp, you have the natural, which is like a more blunt version of the angularity. So usually they're wider through the upper back area. So they have that kind of silhouette that needs to have a little more relaxed line. So it goes down, but it's not as narrow. So it is like the idea of it has flow and drape, but it goes down, but it has a little bit, it just gives you more room in the silhouette. It's not overly fitted. Well, that is like in Ingrid Bergman was a traditional person like that, or someone is there like a Shirley MacLaine is someone like that. Rosalind Russell was like that. So they're very bold, but they don't have that. They have a more easygoing kind of persona, let's say. All right, then you have
Hmm.
the gamines, which are the combination of opposites. So that is like an Audrey Hepburn or a Leslie Caron. Like, with Audrey Hepburn, you never knew if she was a princess or a waif living under the bridge. And like if you remember the movie Roman Holiday, that's really literal. She is literally a princess who escapes from the palace and cuts her hair all off and goes riding around on a motorcycle. So it's that combination of opposites. So they're smaller, but within that, they can be a little more angular or a little more curvy, but they are more petite. So you have a range from someone like Audrey Hepburn to Betty Boop. That kind of
Hmm.
essence. So the eye is
Right.
always about first and foremost learning
Hmm.
what your sculpture is and how you work in harmony with that, and that leads step by step to what we then call your image identity. But the image identity itself is like, I like to call it like it's a style country. So you may be a dramatic, but there's millions of different versions of that. So it isn't like everybody's supposed to look like Katharine Hepburn. It goes from in any way. There's any way to do it. It's just that you need a straighter line. So it's like if I say, if you're French, might live in France, but look at all the places there are to live in France, and look at the difference between Paris and the south of France and the north of France, and the Provence, and they're all different variations. It's not to put you in a box. It's the opposite. I want to smash the boxes, but it's to give you the technique so that you can work in harmony with what you are and who you are and focus it. Because when you are talking about communicating your style to the world, which is what it really is, it's how you focus it that gets your message across. So you can't have it in your head. Like, this is why you can't just dress personality or what people call essence, because that is ephemeral. That there's no way. Your personality is your personality. It comes across in the choices that you make. It's not something that you preconceive because it changes. Your personality is different according to situations that you're in. So it isn't that. We're working in harmony with what's there. And then you learn how to put outfits together, which is the technique of head to toe, dressing for your situation, making conscious choices, because, you might be, let's just be very literal about it. And let's say you're like a Katharine Hepburn. All right, well, Katharine Hepburn was not a movie star, but let's say she had a big job interview for the dream of her life. Well, she's going to dress differently from that than if she has a hot date going out on the town, or if she's, going out to play golf. But there is a continuity to her style that goes through all those situations, but it's not putting her in a box. It's very, very unique to her and her choices. So I guess I want to stress that. So while we call it image identity, it is basically a technique to help you focus who you are as an individual so that you can tell your story to the life and so that you can make your dreams come true.
So how do you approach shopping for outfits? Because there's so many stores. They're crowded with a
Yeah,
lot of clothes.
that's
You have discovery stores that just have stuff on racks.
yeah,
It's just
that's very
racks and racks
true.
and racks of clothes.
And that's the
Uh,
other that's the other
so
side of
it's
today.
hard.
It is hard, and that's why giving you
Yeah.
some tools to go in. The first thing you need to do is make a plan before you go in. Well, the first thing you need to do is get yourself centered in a love-based place, because most people go in shopping out of fear, and they can't find things, and then everything is crammed together, like you say, and it's sort of like becomes like either a nightmare or not that pleasant of an experience, or the other
Right.
side of it is they go in and buy everything. So basically, you need information about yourself. First and foremost, let's assume you know your color palette, which is we use the seasons, but it's a concentrated way of working with a palette of colors that captures your
Right.
coloring, but you learn how to create with it. It's not like again a stereotype, and you know basics about your silhouette. So let's say You know that you are what we call an autumn, which is a fiery hot range of colors, and you know that
Mm-hmm.
you're a dramatic, which is like a tailored kind of type. All right, so before you shop, you make a plan. What situation are you shopping for? Don't go into the store to just say, oh, I'm going to get whatever is there, or to find a top or a separate, and then you'll go home with something. Either you won't go home with nothing or something that hangs in your closet. So make a plan. What are you shopping for? Are you shopping for a wardrobe for a week? Are you shopping for one specific situation? All right, that has to be number one. Then the second thing is, of course, you go to your sizes on the rack, and then you eliminate everything that's not in the palette. You can do that pretty fast. Like if you're in autumn, you know you're not going to wear pastel pink, for instance. So get rid of all the things that you know are not right. Then do what you can to look at what you think might suit your idea of your style based on what you know about your image identity. Now there's going to be a lot of different things there still. Then you want to take them into the dressing room and you want to try them on. And you want to see, like, be open. It's like there are going to be things you didn't know that were right for you that are going to be perfect. But you have to try them on. But the biggest mistake
Mm-hmm.
people do is they go into the store without a plan and they buy separates. Right? Here's where part of the technique is always learn to think head to toe. Because when you look at someone, you're looking at the whole person. A lot of times people think about their face or their top. That's not the way you go through life. We exist in life in long shots, not close-ups. So you want to think outfit at a time and shop by outfit. Don't buy like a top that doesn't have anything to go with it. It'll hang in your closet, or if you wear it, it just won't look great. Think of an outfit. Even if it's like means buy less, but buy one outfit at a time. That is absolutely critical because then what you are doing is you're building a wardrobe of outfits that will work for all the situations in your life instead of having a wardrobe full of separates that kind of don't really go together and don't really add up to anything that looks great to begin with. So that's the most important thing. And then don't be limited by your budget. In other words, you have to have a budget, of course, but before you eliminate things because you think they're too expensive, go first to the things that thrill you, because it would be better to have one outfit that thrills you than it is to have five different things that you think you can mix and match, but you're not really happy when you wear them. So you can rearrange your budget by what thrills you rather than starting by, well, I can't afford this or that because I have to get five outfits. No, it's better to go with what brings you joy first and foremost, and then adjust the budget. I mean, I'm not talking about being irresponsible. I work with people who have the smallest budgets imaginable to people who wear couture. It's never about the money. It's always about starting with your dreams. I think that that's the most important thing.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So, do you think that people should then invest in what they call capsule wardrobes, or
No, I don't.
basics that
Not
are high quality basics?
No, well, you see, this is where a system comes in. You see, my system gives you a family of colors and the silhouettes that go together automatically. So you don't think of it that way. The problem with the capsule wardrobe is it's one basic look and several different ways of ending up with that look. Even if there's a dress and a top and a skirt and pants, it all ends up giving the same impression. Like, let's say you work in an office, you have a capsule wardrobe, it's for 5 days. Well, to everybody else in the office, it looks like you're wearing the same thing. What happens then if all of a sudden you're called up to the president's office for like your job review or some special event? What happens? You instead of thinking of that, you want to build your wardrobe based on situation. Now that only works if you have a family of colors and you understand your silhouette. See, people they want to start at the end rather than start at the beginning. You have to start by learning about yourself and getting technique in order to get to the place where your clothes really thrill you. I'm trying to get people to feel like in the morning, the thing that gets them out of bed is that they can't wait to put on that outfit that's hanging in their closet. That's a whole different level of confidence and joy and really spreading your light out into the world because you love what you have. You love what you bought. I want you to love your wardrobe because each outfit makes you feel like the superstar that you are meant to be. That should be your goal. not, oh, does everything mix and match? I mean, that's great for you when you think, oh, I'm so practical. But when you walk into the room, nobody thinks, oh, look at her outfit. She's so practical. They go, wow, she looks fabulous, or don't think anything about you at all. Right?
Yeah, no, for sure. No, it makes a lot of sense. So when you go shopping, then do you take the shoes that you're gonna wear with this, or do you find shoes?
Well, it
Because
depends. I
you
mean,
know, obviously, you look different with shoes.
well,
You
yeah.
know, they're higher heel shoes or boots
Well,
or
that's
other types
very
of shoes.
true. Well, when we are shopping for new clothes for people or a wardrobe, we have shoes there for them to try on the clothes with that they may not necessarily get. Like if you're going to get a certain type of dress and you need a heel, well, we'll have a heel there. It may not be the heel we end up for that outfit, but it helps you see what the dress will look like. So in the end, yeah, your shoes, your bags, jewelry, if you're wearing a hat, it's all part of the head to
Mm-hmm.
toe. Anything you see when you're looking at a person that's included in the head to toe is something you think of as part of the outfit because things need to go together. Harmony, cohesiveness. Those are two of the keys in building an outfit. So the colors and the styles have to harmonize. I mean, you don't want to wear a little frilly cocktail hat with a severe business suit. That doesn't make any sense. Yet people do silly things like that when they will wear a pair of great big ugly boots with a little silk dress. Now people don't think that way today because we've learned, well, part of it is COVID. People got very sloppy. But, there is a more relaxed attitude today towards everything. But relaxed doesn't have to
Mm-hmm.
mean sloppy or not thought about. You can have the most casual outfit in the world and still look fantastic. But yes, you do, and you do need different things for different outfits. But let me say this. Once again, this is the system. If you have your color palette and you know your image identity, which gives you the sense of the lines that you're wearing, your shoes automatically do go with more things. You don't have to have a wardrobe of thousands of pairs of shoes. Like you can basically have one or two really good pumps that will end up translating into the different outfits that you have because the design underneath that we started with is there. And you end up with less clothes ultimately than you do with the capsule wardrobe when you work this way because it's built into the system. The problem is when people don't have a system, they don't have a plan, they go haphazard into the store, that's what you end up with, a haphazard wardrobe.
I see. I see. So when you first meet with the client and you determine their colors,
Mm-hmm.
let's say they're like an autumn or
Uh-huh.
a winter, then is that going to be the basis of every color that this person wears, like makeup colors and
Well, yes, because
wardrobe colors and
it is,
every
yes,
color?
it is the basis because all the colors have to work together in harmony. But let me say something about this idea of the seasons. That's another thing that's
Mhm.
gotten sort of translated, I believe, incorrectly, or at least not to people's best benefits, because it's
Mhm.
not. It's a season. The so-called season is a palette. It's a family of colors. There are thousands of shades within each of the palettes. So it's not meant to limit you, it's meant to give you freedom. Like let's say you're a winter. All right, well what that means is you have a cool skin tone, a blue-based skin tone, and there's a high level of contrast between the hair, skin, and eye. So that gives us a cool, clear palette. Now that's zillions of colors. That doesn't mean you should always wear bright colors or dark colors. Anybody can wear bright colors and dark colors and light colors, but we want them to be in the family that emphasizes your coloring. So yes, like if you're a winter, for instance, and part of your beauty is high contrast coloring, well, you want to keep the hair relatively dark. You don't want to go blonde or highlight that hair because it washes the person out. So one of the worst things people do when they get older is to overlighten their hair. It's this myth that they've been told that they have to like soften and essentially fade away, and that's what it does. It looks faded. If you are a vivid
Yes.
type of a person, you need that vividness. That's where your liveliness
Mhm.
comes from. On the other hand, your coloring might be more diffused and might have a softer kind of focus to it. Like maybe your coloring is like a Monet painting. Well, that softness is the key you want to always emphasize. It doesn't mean you live your life in pastels. You can wear dark colors too, but maybe they're smokier rather than sharp. That's all. It gives you a foundation that you can go paint with. See, I like people to think of their colors as they're going to paint with their image. So that they get to paint with the clothing colors, they paint with the makeup, they paint with the hair colors. What do you want to put out in the world? Because sometimes you want to be softer, sometimes you need to be more dramatic. You can do all of that by using your colors. But let's say let's say you're a winter and you need cool colors. Well, if I put you in orange, or I put you in pumpkin, or I put you in mustard, you're going to look really washed out and faded. Not good. So, like everybody has their version of greens, a range of greens. Everybody has a range of reds. Like you talk about, how do you pick the right red? There's different reds for different people. It isn't interchangeable. Everybody isn't one thing. And your season shouldn't make you one thing even with the season. It should never be a cookie cutter type of thing. Everything is about how do we help define you as an individual. And any tool we can give you that will help focus that is the key. So with color, we're looking for harmony. It's like music. If you have a chord, you have to have all the notes in the same key. You can't have them in different keys. So if you're going to do, when we're talking about a head to toe in terms of color, clothes, hair, and makeup, they have to be thought of as a unit rather than separate entities.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. Sometimes I see a lot of women that they do get very washed out because they lighten the hair,
Yeah,
or the hair it's kind of a mousy,
yeah, exactly.
blonde
Right, right.
type of color, and then they have some warmth in the skin,
Mhm.
and then they want to wear kind of more brownish
Yeah,
tone
and
lip colors, and then the whole face kind of looks like,
like
you
mud.
can't really see any
Yeah, exactly
definition
right.
at all.
Because you think of those
So
colors.
I look for that contrast.
Yeah,
I need
well,
a bit of contrast, because if
everybody
not,
has,
they just look like,
yeah,
yeah,
that's right. I mean, everybody has contrast between the hair, skin, and eye. Some is more vivid than others, but you always need to maintain that. There's nothing worse than monochromatic hair, skin, and eye. You're absolutely right. That is the quickest ticket to looking older and washed out and faded and tired. But, people are frightened. Once
right,
again, it goes back to what we were starting with.
yes,
They're frightened to stand out.
yep,
And also, they've been preached forever that as you get older, you have to do this softening thing. Just not right. It's
right.
just not. So, I'm here to try to help people get past that. And again, go back to fall in love with who you are. What's special about you? And in your coloring, that level of contrast is one of the most beautiful things. Like like imagine if Elizabeth Taylor tried to turn herself into Marilyn Monroe. Even though they're both what we would call romantics, their coloring is very different. I mean,
Very,
Elizabeth
yes,
Taylor did go blonde for a while, and also she learned right away get rid of it. I mean, it doesn't work on her. You can't imagine Marilyn
no,
Monroe as a brunette, but you can't imagine Hedy Lamarr as a platinum blonde. It's like the uniqueness. That's why we like to go back to old Hollywood, because again, not to try to say there weren't problems then, and that not to say that you're trying to imitate that, but the artistry and the focus that they
yes,
used then,
no,
because everything was about how do we take that person and make her the indelible star that she will be able to draw people into the theaters and people will want to emulate. And they last. They always do. I mean, the icons today that people still refer to, Audrey Hepburn, Marilyn Monroe, it's the same. And it will always be the same, because not because styles need to stay the same, because the artistry and the focus is there. And that's what we can do. We can do that today. But we do that with today's clothes and today's styles. And, we're creatures of today. We're not trying to look like we live in another era. But we can still, it is that excellence in terms of technique and the artistry and the love of the individual, the highlighting of the individual. That should be our focus.
yeah. Well, they had the techniques back then, because that's what the men that did the makeup and the hair
Yeah,
in Hollywood during those periods, that's what they were hired to
yeah,
do, is to
exactly. They hired the best artists,
turn that person into an icon,
That's exactly how you did it. They had the best
Yeah,
of all of the designers and the artists there at that factory. We don't have that today. Hollywood isn't like that today. So you can't look,
no, it's not like that.
no,
No,
you can't
no,
look at, because
no, it's not like that anymore.
no,
No,
and
no,
it can't be. It never will be again, because the studio
no.
system allowed that. And that was the good thing about it. It
Yes.
was a star making factory. There's lots of bad things about old Hollywood, lots of them. But that is the one thing that is really relevant today if we will look into the reasons for that.
Yeah, no, I know that they had the techniques that they had were very mathematical. They were really structured,
Mm-hmm.
and they knew the formulas to make this work.
Yeah.
And nowadays, people don't, think that that's outdated and that's not necessarily right. But they did do a good job
Yeah.
of turning these women into those icons.
Yeah.
They really did capture those things, and their techniques did work.
Yeah. Well,
It's just that now people just think, well, that's kind of not necessarily how everybody wants to look,
well,
but the basis of their ideas wasn't bad, and it's still, I
no,
think,
no, and it's,
viable.
the basis is timeless. The thing when people think it's outdated,
Yes.
this is when they identify it in the wrong way. They think you're trying to tell people to look like that. You're not trying to tell people to look
Right.
like that. You're trying to take the
No.
techniques of artistry. And there are people that, people are
Mhm.
hungry for it. When you give it to them and you show them who they are, you have to sometimes hold their hand through the process. Of course they love it because
Mhm.
everybody else loves it because it really is shining your light on the world. And that is the most beautiful thing you can do. When you have you always see these women walking down the street that have that kind of focus. And it's like Moses parting the Red Sea. People just stop and they, like my wife is like this.
Yes.
She's very beautiful and she's very skilled. And walking down the street, people come up to us and literally someone a couple of weeks ago said, you two, I lived in the neighborhood for years, and I always see you, and I want to tell you, I've been too shy to come up to you. You always make me feel so much better. We hear that all the time. And, it's just that people don't know what to do. So, we need to educate them. That's it. And educate them correctly. Tell them we're not trying to imitate others, but we're trying to help them focus who they are.
Yeah, and I think that's why your book is now so popular with the younger people on TikTok and
Hmm.
on the YouTube, and that because people are trying to find
Yes, because everybody wants
this,
to be
they
seen.
are trying to express themselves,
Yes, because we all want to be seen. We all want our voice to be heard. We all want to be respected and we all want to be valued. And this is how you do it, not hiding your light under a bushel, shining your light. So I believe that, when people see the truth, they respond. And beauty is truth. Beauty, like we started, it is a bridge across time. To me, beauty is our liaison to the heavens. I think it's divine. I really do believe it's what we bring into this world. And when we're centered, this is why I call it love-based beauty, when we come from the heart, we connect with our soul and we bring our purpose to life and we spread beauty around the world. To me, that's the highest purpose. What is better than spreading beauty around the world? Who doesn't like a rose? Have you ever heard of anybody that just hates a rose? No, because they're not, they don't come, they haven't been told that they're not supposed to like it. We just have, we're educating people, I feel we're on the same team, you and me.
yeah. I mean, people, it's kind of like you said, people bloom.
Yes,
People just,
exactly.
you see them
To
bloom.
see them
When they
blossom,
have the
yes,
right color.
yeah,
Yeah, and they just radiate,
yeah,
this
that's it.
confidence and this, and it's just so inspiring to me every time it happens when I do a consultation with
Hmm.
clients, and that happens, and it's just like it's very uplifting for me to see how people
Of course it
just
is.
get
Because
so they change.
mhm.
They really do change.
And what better gift can you give a person than help them transform into the butterfly that they are created to be? That's really it.
Yes,
That's people don't
yes,
understand that there is a level of beauty that everyone possesses the potential to flourish with. And that really is a large part of why you're here because it is what allows you to get your purpose out to the world. Love, spreading love is the best thing you can do. And, style and beauty is how we spread the love.
it's true. I mean, that's why when at my shop that I had for like 10 years, that I had a shop in here in California, and people would come in. We never judge
Yes,
anybody
that's right.
that came into our shop, because people, it's like it's not the way that you look. It's not. It has nothing to do with that. It's just a level of confidence, and
That's
what
right.
we wanted to do is make people feel comfortable,
That's
so
right.
they would try different things,
Hmm.
so they would we open to the journey of
That's right.
trying
Hmm.
different colors, and then
Hmm.
seeing themselves,
That's right.
change
That's right.
by this. And it was inspiring to see how this really did uplift and change people, and we did it over and over and over again, and it's one of the things that really kept us going is kind of seeing
Because think
how
of it,
people really reacted to this and kept coming
and
back,
think that each person
because
is,
they felt this assurance and this
yes, yes.
confidence, and once they had it, they never gave it up,
That's exactly right,
because
because you get in touch with the truth of who you are. But let me say this.
yeah,
Think of all those people in your shop. Every single one of them you send out like that is taking that love, taking that beauty, and spreading it out to every single person they come in contact with. So you've uplifted all
yes,
that consciousness. It's like my piano teacher used to talk about throwing a pebble in the pond and the circle ripples go on and on and on. It's never ending. And what you send people
yes.
from your shop with changes the world. It changes the world in ways that we never really even understand, but it's good to remember that.
Yes, and that's what it has kept me going for like the last 20 years,
Yeah.
because we've been doing this 20 years now, and in that kind of experience, and also sharing my art, because I
Yes.
consider it my art,
See?
to create these things and create these products and designs and things. So it's kind of sharing of myself,
Yeah.
and then seeing how other people get uplifted and benefit from it, and it just really is what keeps me going. Do you have anything else that you want to like set the record straight, that you about what you're doing, and about your last book and this book, and what people have gotten wrong?
Well, I think the main thing people get wrong is, first of all, they think of it as categorizing people because they're used to seeing that. That's all traditional beauty techniques start outside the self and give you something you're supposed to turn yourself into. I'm the opposite of that. We always start with the individual. Who are you? And everything we do is to build upon that. And then we just give them some names that make it easier to work with rather than just having you say, oh, you're beautiful, go out into the world. It's a technique of
Mhm.
self-expression because you need technique. You can't just give someone confidence by saying you're beautiful, go out into the world. How do you put that into practice? So everybody does it in reverse. And there's a lot of reasons for that. But you got to start at the beginning. Style is a journey. It's a journey that starts when we're born. We start being dressed by our parents. We then start to individuate. You watch little girls who want to dress themselves, and it's very charming how they do it. And then you get your teenage years where you really want to individuate from your parents, but you also really want to be like your peers. Then, as your life changes and you mature, which is around the age of 25, because it coincides with when the frontal lobe of the brain is developed, but it also coincides when people's life changes. You have different needs and you start to outgrow those things. So your life is a journey and style is a journey. So you start at the beginning with who are you as an individual. It's always based on you, not preconceived ideas. Get rid of your prejudices and preconceptions and learn come from the heart. That's the most important thing. So I think more than anything else, that that is key. And then also realize that your style is a journey. Like most people conflate trend and style. They're two different things. Trend is something that everybody is doing. It's like everybody at a certain age right now, they part their hair in the middle. That's like, but that means everybody's doing it. Style is your individual voice. So in that respect, it's the opposite of trend. And to have your own style develop, you have to really leave trend behind. If something, it's like fashion. You don't want to be a slave to fashion just because they say, oh, well, this is in or that's in. You don't want to do that. That's not your style. Your style is to understand who you are and what your purpose is and what your physicality is all about, and how do you use what fashion presents you, if you want to, in a way that furthers you as an individual. So it's always about that. Always. I think when people talk about it being like either a body type or an essence. It's not that. It's about you as an individual. And if we use a sculpture as an illustration for you, it's your sculpture. It's
Mhm.
not a preconceived one. If we use a seasonal palette, it's your palette. It's not a preconceived way that limits you in how you're supposed to use color. It's all to help you express who you are. But you have to learn technique. I was a musician in my early life, and I had a great piano teacher, and I was very, very talented. But to learn a piece, you don't go to Rachmaninoff. You go to your finger exercises. You have to learn the scales, and you have to learn certain things about hand positions that are the technique involved before you can do the piece. Or if you're a ballet dancer, you don't start by doing Swan Lake. You go to class. You learn your bar. You learn the positions. You learn all those things. All art has technique. And style is supposed to be your personal art. So you have to learn these things. But it should be easy and it should be fun. And it helps if you have a system that helps you do that. So you're not supposed to be fit into a system. You're supposed to have a system that helps you express yourself, but in a way that's clear to the world. I want people to remember that style is not, look at me, this is me. That's narcissism. Style is about, oh, how do I tell my story to the world? And how do I invite other people into this story? And how do I allow them? And how do I share? Style is about sharing. It's not about narcissism. It's not about, well, I just like to wear whatever I want. Well, you should wear what you want. But if you don't connect it to what you're putting out into the world, then you don't really have style. What you really are doing is different looks. Style is an expression of the soul. A look is how you put a look together. So, there's a big difference. That's the biggest thing. I think that's the biggest thing, really. It's no typing, no preconceived ideas. Get over your prejudices and try to really, the whole idea is fall in love with yourself. However we can do that, that's where we start.
Yeah, I think the exercises that you have in the book are really great for that because they really make you think.
But yeah, they should be
And
fun. That's why we call them games, because I want them to be
yeah,
fun. And the style should be fun. It shouldn't be like a homework or a lesson. When people start with this idea of trying to fit themselves into something, it's all these rules. Now, I don't believe in rules. There are
right.
requirements sometimes, because all art has
Hmm.
requirements. Like if you're going to be a painter, you've got to learn how to work with different paints. You can't just,
Right.
slop it on. I mean, a kindergarten doing finger painting is very different from a Jackson Pollock. I mean, whether you like that style or not, there is a technique involved. So you have to learn some things, but it should be fun. It shouldn't be homework. You have like when people learn makeup by rules and they tell you like, well, if your face isn't a so-called oval, then you've got to do this and this and this to make it into an
Right.
imitation of an oval. Well, what's that going to do? That doesn't make it into an that doesn't make it into an oval, and it negates whatever you are. So you want to basically understand that it's always self-acceptance, and then the technique is to focus that. So you don't start with preconceived ideas that you try to fit yourself into.
Yeah, that's one of the things that we did as well. We never wanted people to fit into anything, and we never approach beauty as there's something wrong with you and you have to fix
Exactly.
it,
To me, there's no
because there's
flaws.
nothing wrong with you.
Yeah, I say there's
There
no
is
flaws,
nothing.
only unique
Yes,
characteristics.
exactly. Everybody has a unique nose and unique
That's right.
lips
And that's
and
what's
unique
beautiful.
eyes.
That's what's gorgeous about
Yes,
the people. I mean, who would Barbara Streisand be without her
exactly.
nose, right?
Exactly. I mean, there's a lot of actresses that have really distinct features, and they are
Absolutely.
known for those
That's
features.
their beauty.
Like Angelica Houston.
Absolutely.
Angelica. Yeah. What she wouldn't look the same. She wouldn't be Angelica Houston without her
That's
features.
exactly
You know.
right. Yeah.
So everybody really is beautiful in their own way, and color and wardrobe is just kind of the outward expression
That's
of
exactly
that
right.
beauty.
That's right.
It isn't meant to change
No,
anything,
for
but
I'm looking for an integration of the inner and the outer person. When the outer person that
right,
you express yourself to the world expresses who you are
yes,
from the soul, that's style and
yeah,
that's beauty because that is your unique story. That's why you're here, that's who you are. It's identity. It's all about your individual identity, which why we call
yes.
it image identity. How do we get your identity out into the image that the world is going to react to or
Yeah,
interact with?
and it's true. Once you do that and are expressing it and it's actually genuine, you will see that people will react to it.
Oh, absolutely,
You
because you're like
will
a magnet.
definitely.
You attract the
Yes,
people. People are hungry for your beauty. Even if they have a different idea of it themselves, they're hungry for it. There
yes,
are people that are so damaged or in so much fear that they're negative, but it's about their problems. But almost everyone really is hungry and loves beauty when it's expressed purely from the person's heart and soul. And that's where it starts. And the rest of it is just, working in harmony with what's there.
Yes, and it's true, and it's about to getting the confidence to do that,
And
and
that's
people
it.
need to
And
feel.
that's what you and I sort of try to do, I believe, is
Yes.
help gently lead people back to that place where they can learn to really love who they are and see the beauty of who
Mhm.
they are. And sometimes it's hard to do. Some people it's harder to do within others. That's the way it is. But that's sort of our job, I think.
Yes. No, I think you're right. It is because for me, all these years, I've been trying to tell people, everybody can wear a red lip. It
Oh
just
heavens,
really
yes.
depends on.
Everybody must have a
Yeah,
red lip. Absolutely.
yeah. Of
You
course they
cannot live
can.
a full life without a red lip.
Of course you can, but some people are very, very afraid of
Of
it
course,
because they think,
yes.
oh, well, my lips are too small, they're
Yeah,
too thin,
yeah.
they're too this or that, and it really has no bearing on it. Really, if you're doing it correctly
Oh,
and if
yeah.
you have the right color,
That's right.
it will definitely work.
Absolutely.
For
Oh, no. Yeah, I don't know how a woman
Yeah.
could live a good life without a red lip.
I know. Me too. I mean, there are, but people are so deathly afraid of it.
Yeah, it's
You
true.
would be
Well,
surprised how. I'm sure you know because you've been in this industry for a long time. So I'm sure you know that people are so afraid of color
yeah,
sometimes that they'll
yeah.
just back away.
Well, that's why
You
we want
know.
to shift them out of fear into love, because if they can start with a different attitude,
Yes.
you have to change the attitude. That's really the most important thing. And it goes back to
Yes.
the very beginning. It's learn to love yourself, learn to accept yourself. Then you can learn to
Yes.
express that. But you've got to come from that place, not from a fear-based place, because you can never really you won't get someone to change if you can't get underneath the fear.
Right, right, and that's the thing. We try to do it slowly by
Yeah,
introducing people to
yeah,
different things
yeah.
and getting them comfortable with one thing and another.
Hmm.
So we kind of like try every color until maybe we try every color twice, until they see it on themselves,
Uh-huh.
enough that
Right.
they go, oh, maybe it does look
Right,
good on
right,
me.
right. Well, it takes however long it takes. Everybody is different, and everybody has their own path, and everybody's path.
Yes.
It takes, everybody. Everybody's not supposed to do it at the same rate. We're not the same. We're all unique individuals.
Yes, yeah. So how many outfits do you think somebody should have
Ah, well,
in a closet? Like,
it depends on how rich you are, I guess. I don't know.
well, like you just have enough
Well,
variety
here's
to
what
dress.
I think. I'd
Like,
like to try to get people to have 2 weeks of outfits
okay,
so that they have enough to at least to begin with, and then in time
okay,
hopefully all your outfits are going to be alike, so you keep building your wardrobe. And when you work with this, style isn't like trend. You don't have to throw these things away, especially today with fast
right,
fashion, which trend, some of these stores go through the complete stock and change it every 2 weeks. So style isn't like
right,
that. You buy things that are right for you. Most of them will last for a really long time. So you're building your wardrobe. But,
right.
it depends on the budget. I mean, I've worked with people who really can buy only one or two outfits at a time. But it's better for them to do
Hmm.
that because they get used to what they can be. So then when they're ready to
Right.
buy new things, they want to go for that feeling. I also work with people who
Okay.
have like a whole apartment full of clothes. I mean, I shop with people at the bargain basement and I shop absolute true couture. So it depends on the person where they are. But it is a good idea if you can work your way into having a closet that at least has 2 full weeks of clothes. Because what I'm always doing when I'm shopping with a wardrobe is I'm trying to take where the person is today, but I'm also trying to give them a few outfits for where they're going to be tomorrow and the next week. So we talk about wardrobing your future because time is always moving forward. Like where we are today is because of what we decided yesterday. That's what creates today. So today you're creating what you're going to be tomorrow. So I want to have those tomorrows in your wardrobe also. So I always try to push the envelope for people. And one thing I'll do for everybody, if we can find one that is appropriate, is at the end of all their wardrobe, when we have everything, I'll bring out an evening gown. And I make them try it on so that they can see how they look. And none of them say, oh, I would never ever wear this, blah, blah, blah. I said, it doesn't matter. I want you to see how you feel in that. And some of the stores I take people with, I can get them a $500 dress for $25. So if I can get you that, you should buy that and hang in your closet. So every time you open the closet, you see that dream. And even if it's something that, you'll wear once in your life, first of all, if it costs $25, who cares? But also, it gives you a vision of yourself that's beyond where you think you are today. And because we're always transforming in our life, that's the way we capture evolution, is that you want to keep thinking not just of where you are today, but where you're going to be tomorrow. Because what I hear a lot of times is, well, I only have casual life. I only do this. I only do that. Yes, but you see, if we get you something that you really love, even if it's just like a little dressier dress, even if it's a little silk dress, that you really love, you're gonna find a place because you want to wear it. And when you start doing that, well, that changes your life because you realize there's some things out there you
Right.
want to do that you didn't think about or that you didn't think you could do, and then you start to change.
Right.
That's why, getting your closet together changes a person's life. It has to, because you have to wear those clothes and you learn to fulfill new situations. And so I'm always trying to do that. But I would say if you can, 2 weeks is good. But the most important thing, if you can't, start
Mhm.
with go by the outfits. It's more important that you have fewer correct outfits that are complete head to toe than it is you have lots of different pieces because they don't add up to something. They don't really let you go out into the world at your best. And that's what you want to do, whether it's super casual. It doesn't have to be dressy at all. It can be, like
Mhm.
tights and a sweater. I mean, that's I buy that for people all the time. But if you look fabulous, if it's the right thing, you look fabulous. You want to always feel that way, whether you're at your most casual or at your most dressy. So the most important thing is that the outfits are correct. But if you can, your goal should be, it's helpful. Let's not say should. It's helpful if you can have 2 weeks of clothes because that gives you enough variety that you can start to feel different parts of yourself. Because I don't want anybody being put in a box. Like I don't want anybody thinking, well, they only should be wearing suits or something like that. That's not the point. The point is it lets you dress for all the situations that your life today requires, but also give you the chance to do these new exciting things that you didn't even know were waiting for you. That's what I
I
call
see.
shopportunity because there's
Yeah.
opportunity in the stores if you'll open up to them.
That's great. So when you're shopping, when you have this wardrobe of clothes, do you consider trend at all? Because like now people are wearing like very chunky kind of Doc Martin type
I
boots.
know.
Is that something you have to wear, or do
Uh,
you
well,
wear?
nobody that I
You know,
shop with is going to end up with those because they just don't work. I mean, that's trend, and that's based on trend is a teenage thing, and it's based on rebellion. And teenagers don't
okay,
want to look like their mothers. Of course they don't. I didn't want to look like my
right.
parents. I used to wear trendy things, but you outgrow that. So I will. If I'm shopping with a teenager, if I bring a teenager in, I work with them a little differently because I have them bring in magazines and show me what they like, and then we talk. Well, that could work for you because we go through the same thing, like their coloring, their
Hmm.
silhouette, all of that. And I could say, well, that could work with you because you see, you need that straighter silhouette, and that would work okay. But you see, that little skirt that flounces out, that really destroys it. So we want to move away from that. But I'm gentle with them because teenagers should work with trends. It's a part of growing up. But when you get a little
Right.
older, if you're wearing things like that, you just look silly. It's just the silliest thing to have those. You're calling them like Doc Martens. I think of them as Frankenstein boots. They look like the Frankenstein monster. So if you wear that with a silk dress, okay. So teenagers like to do that because it's sort of like a in your face. But if you're like 25 and you're doing that, you just look like you don't have any sense of how to put things together. And that's not a good thing to put out into the world. But yes, if the trend is great, but you see, the thing about trends is they're not meant to last. There's a thing involved in trends that's called planned obsolescence. It's planned to
Hmm.
go out of style as fast as possible because there's companies, the big companies are behind it, and that's how they make their money. So they want you to follow those things because by the time you're wearing a trend, it's already yesterday's news. It's already gone on to
Right.
something else. So
Right.
that's not
I mean, this is the same. Yeah, it's the same with makeup. It's the same
Yes,
with
of
that.
course. I don't, and I
These
don't do
things come
trendy
in and out.
makeup. I mean, makeup
Right.
trends. I mean, for a teenager to experiment, great. But
Right.
if you're going into a
Right.
professional situation and you're painting, like what looks almost like that rock group Kiss all over your face,
Yes.
you're not gonna do very well in that situation. You want to be
Yes.
classy and elegant and polished and in your
Right.
way. I mean, some women wear more obvious makeup than others. It's part of their style and their look.
Right.
That's great. Some
Right.
people, their makeup is a more what we would call natural look, but it still has to be polished.
Mhm.
Like a natural looking makeup
Right.
is not wearing no makeup. It's just a different way
Right.
of working with it. So,
Right.
I think, I don't, if a, sometimes a trend might pass over into something that lasts longer, but that's because it's got an excellence in the design. So I'm not looking for trend. I'm looking for excellence in design. So we don't, most trend doesn't fall into that. I mean, I'll give you an example. And also they're so badly made. Like we went in, we shopped with this woman was a dramatic, and we had gotten her a good wardrobe. But I don't know if I won't mention the name of the store, but it's a very well-known fast fashion store, and they have a lot of trendy clothes, and some of them are very good sometimes in terms of the look. So we bought her. It was when slip dresses came back, and she looked really good. And then they had a bunch of them there in her colors that we couldn't find anywhere else, and they were not expensive at all. So we went and we tried them on, and she came out and she looked dazzling in them. But then we couldn't get it off her. There was no way, the way it was built, and she was a very thin person. There was no way she could get it off, not over her head. So the manager had to come literally cut her out of it with scissors.
Oh my.
That's how badly some of these clothes are made. So you don't want to do something like that to begin with. But trend for trend's
Yes.
sake, young people believe that trend is modern. It's not. There's nothing modern about it. My mother always used to say, hang on to everything because it's going to come back. She used to say when you'd come out
Right.
in something, well, we used to wear that when I was so and so. And that's, there's nothing
Yes.
new in trend. Everything today has been seen before. It's trend is about
Exactly.
rebellion. So, that's
Yes.
not something you want really to get to connected to. But young people think trendy clothes are modern, so they think anything that trendy is outdated. That's not true. There's only one thing modern about fashion today, and that's the fabric. And that is because of what I said before about stretch. Either it's in the fabric
Right.
or it's made the fabric lighter weight. Like it's
Right.
different than it was before. So that's modern, which allows there to be a lot of styles that people couldn't wear before because they conform to the body in a different way. So
Right.
there's much more freedom in modern fashion. But the last thing that's modern are trends, and that's the young people. Their idea of modern is trendy, but that's because when you're young, it's the hubris of the young. You think the world revolves around you, and I mean, I listen. I have great affection for that. I think back to me at those times I lived in at that part of my life. I was definitely
Mhm.
just like that. So you just want to
Yeah.
outgrow it. But social media is designed for trend because what's underneath it is money, and they want you to spend money, and they want you to do it fast.
Sure.
And influencers want a lot of likes, and it gets to the point where the only thing you can get attention for is to do something shocking. Like when somebody goes
Right.
on the red carpet, with total see-through dress. There's nothing
Right.
glamorous about that, but it becomes a trend, and
Right.
it's just the way
Yes.
the situation is. So that's why it's so
Yes.
important that we help people understand what's best for them and who they are, so they don't fall into those traps.
Yes, I think well, you're right on that end, because with makeup you get the same issue.
Yeah,
You have
absolutely.
a lot of trendy things come and go, and as you get older, you can't really wear some of these things
No,
because they're not,
because they
yeah,
don't
they
they don't work.
don't
Well,
work on other skin,
no, they don't. Well, they actually, I mean, it depends on what you think work is, because if you look at younger people, I mean, what it looks like is, oh, this is a person who's playing around with a lot of makeup. Well, you don't want to look like,
Exactly.
when you get
Yeah.
to a certain point, which is really like in your late 20s, you want to look like
Yes.
an adult. You don't want to look like, a kid that doesn't really have a life, so they spend all their time putting things on their face. That's sort of what it
Right.
is. I
Right.
mean, I know I'm all for
Yes.
fun, and
Oh,
I
yes.
think that young people should have as much fun with all these things as they want to. I think that it would be better for them to understand, though, that
Sure.
this is sort of what they go through at this point in life. And they're not, you can't, you can only get a person to understand what their level of understanding at any point in their life is. And a young person understands things in a different way because of their experience and lack of experience, but also physiologically, it is this thing about the frontal lobe of the brain. I never knew that until I heard on television a psychologist talking about that. What I did learn, even in my early years, was that the women that came to me started to take what I do more seriously at around the age of 25. That when they came in earlier,
Hmm.
that it was fun and that, but I knew that they might not do it. I mean, no, they do it for a
Right,
while, or but then you get people and they
right,
start in their late 20s, and when they hit 30, no, this is serious business to them because their life is different. And then when I heard
right.
that this psychiatrist talking about that, it makes perfect sense because this is how we develop as human beings. And that's what style is. It should be an expression of wherever you are at any point in time. That's why it should get better as you get older because there's more of you. You know more things, you have more technique, you have more experience, you've done all these things in life, and your style and your beauty reflects that if you allow that to happen.
No, I think yeah, you're absolutely right. I think that's what I think gets confusing to people as they get older. They don't know if they are just old, if they're not following trend, or if they will
Right.
look old, or they're out of touch with what's going on
Mm.
because they're not following what the
Yeah.
trends
Yeah,
are.
I think it's very important to
So
tell
it's
people that
hard.
trend and modern are two different things. They really are. And you can't get young people to
Mhm.
understand that and they'll fight with you about that. But the world isn't,
Right,
the world isn't made up of teenagers and teenagers are great
right,
and they need to go through what they need to go through. So you have to remember you're not a teenager. You're not that. You're what you are and you love that because you're supposed to be what you are. But like I'm going back to that idea of the rose. The rose is at its most beautiful when it is in full blossom. That's when we see the beauty of what a rose was meant to be. A bud is lovely, but it's meant to blossom. You don't see a rose trying to desperately hang on to being a bud. The ones that don't blossom die. They don't live as buds. They die. And also this is what
right.
happens. Caterpillars go into the cocoon. They don't go into hibernation. They're transforming into the butterfly. And when they're ready to emerge, they have to break through the cocoon with their wings. And you'll see a cocoon, you'll see the wings battering it. Some don't have the strength to do it and they die in the cocoon. The ones that emerge as butterflies break through and then they soar. But we're like that too. If we stay stuck in the past, if we stay stuck with these outdated ideas that there's beauty outside of yourself or that youth is the ultimate beauty ideal, if we stay with that, then our soul dies because we don't have anywhere to go. But if we really understand, oh, every moment of our life is a miracle, and every moment of our life you can shine your light on the world. If you understand that, then you're just going to get better and better and better until it's time to go on to the next plane, wherever that would be.
Well, that's a lovely, lovely thought, and I think I've covered everything I wanted to cover, and it's been delightful talking to you, David, today. I
Well,
mean, just
likewise. Thank you
great
so much for
information.
having me. I've just enjoyed it so much because I really do. I love your mission. It so speaks to me. It's so beautiful, and I just know that you're doing God's work.
Oh, well, thank you so much. And I really admire what you're doing. And I hope that this book is a huge success
Oh,
and
thank you so
more and
much.
more people, yeah, more and more people are using your techniques and actually discover this self love and then spread it to more people because we certainly need that in the world today.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for having me. All right.
Thank you. Thank
Okay.
you.
Bye bye.
All right. Bye bye.